This week in one of the videos, I said, no matter what I do, I can't really get DOMs. I can't get soreness in my erectors, in my lower back erectors. No matter what I do, I just can't seem to get it. I've done pin squats. I've done back extensions. I've done, worked up to, heavy single on a deadlift quite frequent in the last sort of month. And I never really get any soreness in the back. I do get those back pumps, but they never result in any soreness the following day. And then one of you guys in the comments said, mate, all you got to do is do 5x5 at like 80% and you'll see what soreness is on the deadlift. And I thought, damn straight, you are exactly right. That's exactly how I used to get soreness back in the day. So this morning, this afternoon, when I woke up after my last night shift, slept 6 hours, didn't eat for 12 hours. Not the most ideal situation, but I've said this in the past. I seem to do quite well when I'm basically not rested or not fed. I seem to have pretty good workouts. Today, went straight in, nothing in my gut except water. Felt my core was strong. I've always said this to you guys that for some reason I feel like my core is its strongest when I don't have any food in my belly. And 12, 14 hours, probably even longer than that, was my last feed, during the night shift. And then I slept and, I've woken up and so I have nothing in my gut. Nothing in the stomach digesting at all. And so on those moments, I kind of feel like my core is the strongest. And this is probably another little explanation of why I feel stronger after these night shifts. Because my core just feels rock solid. I can contract, I can kind of clench down. My diaphragm works really well. I can, I don't know. I think that's one of the reasons why I feel so good on these days after night shifts. There's no other reason to explain it other than maybe some adrenaline release in response to the high cortisol level, which is as a result of lack of sleep, lack of food, and all the rest of the stuff. So this afternoon, I went to the gym and I was like, okay, I want to get some DOMs in my lower back. So started with the pin squats. As you can see here, I worked up to, actually, I think the following clip is 270 kilos, quite high pin. You can see that it's kind of like at my sternum, right underneath my sternum. Worked up to 270 for 10. You'll see that in the next clip. That moved really well. Once again, the core did really well. I felt quite stable underneath that. Then I worked to strip the bar back, worked up to a 200 kilo back squat. And then after that, I got into the work that I really was there to do, which was the deadlifts. I worked up to 240 on the deadlifts. And then I shaved the bar back to 200 kilos and I did 2 sets of 5. I wanted to do 3 sets of 5 and I even fantasized about doing 5 sets of 5 at 200 kilos. Now, that's quite heavy for me. I've never done 200 kilos for a set of 5, not even, let alone 2 sets of 5. So this is kind of like a PR for me. It is a PR for me. I've never really wanted to do rep work on the deadlift. I've said to you guys many times over that I have a very weak capacity, very small capacity for deadlift work. It just wears me out. And so tomorrow I'm expecting to be a broken man. I don't know how I'm going to pull up tomorrow. Definitely I'm going to have soreness in my lower back because right now I'm sitting here talking to you guys and I can feel my lower back more so than anything. I feel my hamstrings a little bit as well, and I feel my glutes somewhat, feel like there's warmth there, there's fire there, so maybe they're going to be sore, but definitely the lower back is going to be sore. If it's not sore, I'm going to be freaking surprised. So I did 2 sets of 5 of that. Like I said, I wanted to do 3. After the second set, man, I was spent. Not only was I spent physically in terms of my muscles, but also you have to remember there's no food in the belly, man. And so these type of sessions where you're pushing reps on sets, you basically need some sort of reserve. You need some glycogen stores. You need some freaking food. Otherwise, you start getting dizzy. And after the second set of the deadlifts, I started feeling dizzy, and I looked at the cameraman. I said, "Look, I think we're gonna call it there, man. There's no point pushing any further. It's not the most ideal conditions to do, rep work." At the start of the session, I felt good, but then it kind of caught up with me, the fact that I had no food. I started getting dizzy. And so then after that, I didn't want to do any heavy ass lifting. So I went over to the back extension. That's how I finished my workout. I ended up doing 5 sets of 10 with 30 kilo dumbbell. I keep calling it a dumbbell. It's a freaking barbell, but it's one of those fixed ones. And that was the session. And so the fella that said to me, do 5 sets of 5 at 80% with the deadlift, and you can freaking book in a session of soreness, I think he's right. And, The reason I didn't kind of think about this beforehand, before the comment, was because, well, like I said, have a small capacity, a very, very weak capacity for deadlift type work or any of those variations. It just completely ruins me. And so I'm expecting to be ruined for the next few days because of this. It really kind of hits me for a six, this sort of stuff. So, but anyway, regardless of that, I think I'm on this little journey to absolutely pour concrete through the core and the spine. That's the only thing I'm thinking about now. I really want to make my lower back hardcore. And so I'm even willing to sacrifice my daily squatting, even if I have to hit 140 tomorrow, whatever the case might be. I'm actually really interested, really intrigued to see what the effect of this session is. I worked hard today. There was sweat dripping off my freaking nose during those deadlifts. So I'm expecting quite a big recovery bill. Quite a lot of points have been spent tonight. So let's see what's happening. The back extensions I've been doing for the last sort of 2 weeks, I want to say, and I feel like they have added some sort of capacity to my posterior chain because I've done so many freaking reps. I've made a video recently, 20 sets of 20 on that damn thing. So that's a whole lot of reps, whole lot of volume through the posterior chain. So I'm hoping I can actually build some sort of capacity in my posterior chain. I'm sure that's going to carry over. This is the 200 for 1. I'm sure that's going to carry over to squatting. It just has to. I don't know. Maybe my assumptions of staying clear of the deadlift and putting all of my recovery points to the squat, maybe that's not the best decision. Maybe I should spend equal amount of points on the deadlift as I do on the squat. Maybe the reason I don't have the capacity to recover from the deadlift and its variations is because, I do squat every day and that's exactly what I do. So I don't do a lot of deadlifting. I know, previously I've had a lot of success in terms of my health. When it comes to the deadlift, I had quite pretty good success when it came to the hip pain, activating the glutes, all of that kind of helped. But I never really pushed it in the sense of, okay, let's do some fives, let's do some triples, let's really get after some volume in the deadlift. Basically, that's what I'm after. This is my little kind of experiment to solidify the hell out of the lower back. It all started with these damn pin squats and these damn lower back pumps. That's what planted the seed. That's what planted me this idea that maybe I have an anterior core that's weak, which is probable. And I did the hanging leg raises. That kind of had a pretty good effect. But it didn't really do the same thing as I experienced when I started doing the back extensions in the hyper. That thing really made my lower back solid. And today, during the pin squats, like very, very minimal a pump through the lower back, like almost, hard to notice. So, and I haven't done any leg raises for the last, I want to say 2 weeks, week and a half. All I've done is posterior chain, back extensions like crazy. And now what I'm feeling is, okay, there's some sort of capacity for my lower erectors to kind of go through this work. So I think I'm onto something with this. There it goes again. I said it again. I feel like I'm onto something with training the lower back. It's one of those muscles that, I've said it in the past. It's the most important body part, I think. I've said in the past that in nursing, certainly in the medical field, the most frequent body part that gets injured and ends up in work cover and all sorts of time off work is the lower back. So the lower back injuries is a very frequent manifestation in the workplace. I'm sure other industries also experience that as well. It's by far the most frequently injured area. So if we weightlifters, bodybuilders, powerlifters, if we concern ourselves with solidifying the living hell out of the lower back, I think there's benefits to be had with weight on the bar. There's just no two ways about it. I think if you look at the anatomy, the weakest portion of our whole system is that area in lumbar spine, both anterior and posterior. We don't have any ribs there. It's basically the weakest point of our spine. Thoracic spine is basically solidified with a little bit of rib kind of rigidity, if you will. It adds rigidity to the structure. And obviously the cervical spine as well is also one, very exposed area of the spine, if you will. So the lumbar and the cervical spine But we don't really have, I mean, if you're a wrestler or an MMA guy, you probably have to train the neck. But I put my barbell on my back, right, or my traps. And so I never really need cervical spine strength, if you will. But if you're in a wrestling, I know some of you guys have said in the comments that wrestling is all about controlling the head. So if you have a really strong neck extension musculature, then you're kind of going to be resisting them controlling you in your head. So I think the lumbar spine is critical for me. So this is the 240. This is the top set of the day. He moved all right, but because I was starting to get fatigued, I didn't want to put any more weight on. I'm quite happy with how this moved. And so here I thought, okay, feeling tired, that's it. And then and that's when it kind of occurred to me, okay, let me put some freaking volume in. Originally, I wanted to, do 180 for a bunch of sets. And then I thought, 200. Let's do 200 because that's around whatever, 80%, 85% maybe for today's weight. Because it was 240 instead of 250. So I decided, okay, let's take 200 for a ride. I did 2 sets of 5 and it did the job. I think I'm going to be sore tomorrow. So in terms of frequency of this stuff, right now I'm doing it weekly. It seems to be that every single time I do a night shift, I do some deadlift work. Last week I tried 260, that failed. And I feel like I'm doing something positive with all this back training. The pin squats hit the lower back. The back extensions hit the lower back. The squats, I feel, hit the lower back as well, although to a lesser degree. And also, obviously, deadlifts and all the other variations that I do. So there's a lot of work that goes through the lower back. I once heard somebody say that the lower back for a weightlifter is kind of like the bicep for the bodybuilder. I know biceps is kind of like, in the bodybuilding world, everyone loves big arms, and Arnold Schwarzenegger basically popularized that and made big arms really attractive, big biceps, big peaks and whatever. But if you're a weightlifter, Olympic weightlifter, and certainly a powerlifter, our thing is the lower back. If your lower back gives out, you start to round, you're pretty much screwed. And end of the story there. I mean, you can definitely continue with the lift with that compromised lumbar flexion position, but then you're basically, flicking a coin up and gambling away the health of your lower back. Because once the lower back gives, we all know that it's a long journey back. If you herniate a disc in that area, L4, L5 seems to be one of the most frequently injured discs. If you injure that space, then it's a long journey back. And so I think if you're interested in longevity, if you're interested in, doing this for a little while, I think, doing some of this, I guess, lower back work, maybe it's not so fun. I don't know. For me, you guys probably know that squatting for me is the most fun I have in the gym. The deadlift for me, I said to the cameraman in the car on the way back home, I said to him, man, like out of all the freaking exercises that I've done, deadlift and deadlift variations feel like laboring. I literally feel like I'm in the field freaking working. Whereas all the other exercises, I feel like I'm training. It's just my kind of mentality on this. It's by far the most difficult thing for me. And having that said, I should probably concentrate on this thing, because I've said in the past that the very thing that we don't like doing is probably the thing that we're not good at, and the things that we're not good at is probably the most beneficial for us to work on, right? Because if you kind of iron those weaknesses out, then I'm sure all of those things carry over. Just kind of like what I was saying to you with synergy and balancing the body, the weaknesses, everything. It's kind of like, we are more than the sum of our parts if you do that. So that's basically, and you can see here, I picked a 30 kilo dumbbell and I took this for a ride as well, did 5 sets of 10. My lower back wasn't pumped until I started doing this. This really started pumping it up. So in a way, the deadlift, offered me that high tension through the muscle, and probably that's what's going to cause the soreness. And then this movement right here, the hyper, is probably just adding all that blood volume, that circulation, which is required for healing and recovery. And so loading this exercise past, I don't know, 40, 50 kilos. I mean, I could probably do the 1 or 2 reps for that. It's just awkward to load, and it's awkward to kind of work with. But I'll continue to work with it. I think deadlifts is by far the best thing for your lower back when it comes to high weight. It's the easiest to set up, and it's probably the safest and whatever. This is kind of awkward, although I do like doing less reps and more reps. I think when you get into 20, 30 reps with these, you start getting further and further away from carryover to the deadlift. Don't get me wrong, like that's what you need if you want capacity. But if you want to kind of work on your 1 rep max, you need to start working with lower weights, lower reps, high weights. But if you just want that endurance, that posture quality in the lower back, then you're supposed to do high reps. Because if you think about it, one of you guys said in the comments, there are some muscles in our body which are basically super resistant to fatigue, like super resistant to fatigue, but they don't have any capacity for strength. I think the fella said lower back is one of those, like all those little muscles that are kind of like throughout the spine, those little tiny muscles which are kind of there for posture. They're not there, like, they're not really good at producing force, but they can do small force for a very long time. And in that comment, I mentioned eyelids as well. I think eyelids are like 100% slow twitch fibers. I mean, how often do you freaking get sore in the eyelids? You know what I mean? Like, you never get sore in those because they're just super resistant. They're just completely different fiber type. Whereas the big movers that we have in the body, your glutes, your hamstrings, your quads, all that kind of stuff, they don't have the greatest endurance, but they can produce big force, and they're big, muscular, big bellies. And so there's different type of muscle fibers, and you basically have to cater to each differently. So you need to attack it differently. Anyway, guys, enough of the black screen. I'll catch you guys tomorrow for another workout. Peace out.